welcome to the 49ers First and 10 podcast presented by Cisco. I'm your host, Brianna McDonald, with your 49ers team reporter, Lindsay Pilares. And today we're bringing you some of the latest news from the 49ers, and that includes some big news coming out of the second week of free agency now. We've got some new faces in the building and a fan favorite back in the fold. We'll start off with some of the biggest news of the week with Kyle Juszczyk re-signing with the San Francisco 49ers. What exactly happened here, and why are the fans so excited to have the Juice back in the Bay?
I think Kyle Juszczyk was definitely one of those fan favorites that everyone was sad to see go in free agency. He really was only a free agent for a matter of days before he decides to come back to the 49ers. He signed on to a 2-year deal, so that'll keep him in the Bay through the 2026 season. Basically what happened here, from what he said in his Sirius XM NFL radio interview that we saw come out this week, the 49ers decision makers kind of put the ball in his court. He decided to test the market, and at the end of the day decided the Bay Area, the 49ers, this is home. This is where he has spent the last 8 years of his career. It's where he hopes to continue his career. It's where he will continue his career. And this was definitely a family decision. I think one of my favorite parts of watching this all unfold was all the social media posts that have come out of it. Christian Juszczyk posted a really heartfelt Instagram reel that detailed Kyle's journey from 2017 to now. We talked about it on the podcast last week. He was one of that original group of free agents brought into the 49ers by general manager John Lynch and head coach Kyle Shanahan when they signed on back in 2017. It obviously means a lot to be part of that original core of the Lynch-Shanahan era. And then I really liked the Wolf of Wall Street meme that Kyle Juszczyk put up on X. So yeah, just a lot of good news, I think, for the fan base. This was one that you could see all over social media that they were very energized about.
Definitely. Speaking of social media, George Kittle took to social media to celebrate Juszczyk's return. So did Christian McCaffrey. So a lot of fun on social media there. And, you know, this is like a win-win-win deal, I feel like, for the Niners, because the San Francisco 49ers have another reliable weapon on their offense. Another way to get Brock Purdy some more assets as he looks towards that next season. It's a win for Kyle Juszczyk, security in the Bay for 2 more years. And then it's a win for the fan base for them to scream juice in the stands as he makes those plays in 2025. So I'm super excited to see that news as we enter the new year. Now, with free agency, we've also got some newcomers with quarterback Mac Jones, tight end Luke Farrell, wide receiver Demarcus Robinson, and a few other players who've got 1-year deals. But I'm excited about this Mac Jones deal. We've got him for 2 years. We've got a backup now with Brock Purdy and Mick Lombardi in that quarterback room. So this is some really exciting news. And what have you learned about Mac Jones up until this point?
Yeah, Mac Jones is someone who started his career with the New England Patriots, was a first-round pick, and then ended up at the Jags for the final season of that rookie deal. The Jags decided not to pick up his 5th-year option. He comes to San Francisco on this 2-year deal, and I do think there is potential for kind of a re-energizing of his career in a similar way to Sam Darnold. We saw Sam Darnold sign on here for 1 year, then earn a contract with the Minnesota Vikings for $10 million, did really well there, helped lead them to the playoffs, and now signed a 3-year deal for $100 million with the Seattle Seahawks, coming back to the NFC West. So I do think that he was looking for a fresh start, definitely coming to an offense with a ton of weapons, and obviously an offensive mastermind in Kyle Shanahan. The 49ers needed a backup QB with both Brandon Allen going to the Tennessee Titans, and then also Josh Dobbs signing with the New England Patriots. So again, a really good backup quarterback to back up Brock Purdy in the 2025 season.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I sat down with him when he first signed, and what I've learned is that he actually has a connection with Brock Purdy that dates before him joining the Niners. He hosted Brock Purdy on Purdy's visit to Alabama back when he was looking on where he's going to settle in with college. So that's where they first connected, and they've kept that connection since, and so he's really looking forward to join Brock Purdy. And then, like you spoke about with joining Kyle Shanahan's system and elevating there, he has a tenure of really amazing mentors and coaches with Bill Belichick and then also Nick Saban, and he's really excited to add Kyle Shanahan onto that list. So excited for his future with the Niners. We've also signed one of his teammates, a former Jacksonville Jaguar who actually came from the same draft class, although they went to different teams in 2021, but tight end Luke Farrell, he is signed on to a 3-year deal, so a pretty major contract for the 49ers in this free agency class. What do you think about Luke Farrell?
Yeah, so Luke Farrell has the longest deal that we've seen come of the 9 new faces to the 49ers in free agency, like you mentioned, 3-year deal. Actually, as a former teammate of Nick Bosa, they were both on that 2017 Ohio State team, and then for at least a portion of that 2018 season. So there is some familiarity also with someone else in the building. I think the 49ers were looking for that number 2 tight end, and they really have been in search of a good fit for that since Charlie Warner took a deal with the Atlanta Falcons following the 2023 season. So they're bringing in Farrell here. They're giving him some time to really create that chemistry with George Kittle, and who better to learn from than, I would say, and everyone I think would agree with me, a future Hall of Fame tight end.
Yeah. Awesome. And then we've also signed wide receiver Demarcus Robinson to a 2-year deal, another Florida Gator in that receivers room with Ricky Pearsall. So super exciting there. He's played with the Chiefs, Ravens, and most recently with the Rams. He had his career high in 2024 in receiving yards with 505 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. How does this influence now the receivers for the Niners?
I think this was a great ad for the Niners simply because right now you have Brandon Ayuk that I think is not expected to be ready to go for that start of the 2025 season, just given the severity of his injury. Of course, I am not his doctor, and we don't have an official timeline on him. But again, it was an ACL, an MCL, and other ligaments.
Pretty major, yeah.
Yeah, pretty significant. So we're waiting to hear more updates on that. But again, another reliable wide receiver. You saw him set career highs in receiving yards, touchdowns, and yards per catch with the Rams last year. Obviously, very familiar with the San Francisco 49ers after spending the last 2 seasons in LA. So it just gives that 49ers wide receiver core some depth that is needed right now. And then he joins, obviously, Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, exciting. And then there's 5 other free agents who are signed on 1-year deals. Can you break down those players for us?
Yeah, we've got some additions really that I think are going to benefit the 49ers special teams unit. So our most recent signing is cornerback Saran Neal. He is a career special teamer, spent 6 seasons with the Buffalo Bills. Last year was with the Miami Dolphins, 60 special teams tackles over the course of his career. It takes a lot of pride in bringing that special teams ace abilities to the units that he has been a part of. And he's been, I believe, 300 plus special team snaps since the 2020 season. So again, a wealth of experience there. You also add cornerback Trey Brown, safety Richie Grant, safety Jason Pinnock, and linebacker Luke Gifford. Also bringing depth to that special teams coverage unit, certainly an area where the 49ers want to improve. So I think all around good additions, especially when you're looking at that third phase of the game for the Niners.
Absolutely. And an area of need for the Niners, as we saw a few players leave in free agency this year. Now, speaking of players who are leaving this year, we've got a few departure updates. The 49ers have also released long snapper Tabor Pepper. He appeared in 80 games over 5 seasons with the Niners and was a fan favorite on socials also. So fans were sad to see him go, but we've brought in long snapper John Weeks, who originally entered the NFL after signing with the Houston Texans as a free agent in 2010. So he's got a 15-year career with Houston and now joins us in the Bay. And some of the biggest news out of free agency in the second week now is Jordan Mason has been traded to the Minnesota Vikings. So what exactly are the details in this trade here?
Yeah, we were talking about how Jordan Mason last week on this podcast was tendered for that second round pick option. And instead, what happened? The 49ers trade him to the Minnesota Vikings, and they also send their 6th round pick, 187th overall, to that. In exchange, the 49ers received actually a 5th round pick, 160th overall, for this upcoming draft, and then in 2026 we'll get a 6th rounder. So this is an interesting move. I do think in terms of cap space and what that second round tender contract would have meant if the 49ers kept Jordan Mason, upwards of $5 million. This way, that now is cleared off the books. Jordan Mason is in a really good landing spot, and the 49ers did jump up 27 spots in the draft order for this year, and also have just picked up a little bit of draft capital for 2026, which is never a bad thing.
Yeah, pretty major, and it gives a lot of indications to what the 49ers might do in the draft. Again, it reaches that goal of them wanting to get younger on the roster. They had a young player in Jordan Mason. They're going to get even younger this year. Perhaps that indicates that they pick up a running back, maybe with that 5th round pick that they acquired from the Vikings.
It's certainly possible. I think if nothing else, it really just reaffirms the confidence that the 49ers have in, A, that Christian McCaffrey is going to be 100% ready to go for this upcoming season, and also that they loved the potential of Isaac Guerrero. We saw him and really the entire stable of 49ers running backs step up in 2024. It was a room that was hit by a lot of injury. They liked what they saw from Isaac Guerrero. And again, yes, with the 11 picks that the 49ers have in 2025, it's possible that in those later rounds, they opt to get a running back as well.
Yes. So speaking of the 2025 NFL draft, the Niners actually have the most picks out of any team in the league this year. So that is really exciting for the fan base and for the front office as we look to bring in new players in 2025. So what does the order look like this year?
Yeah, so order looks exactly the same of what we detailed last week. Only major change that you're going to see is because of that Jordan Mason trade. So now the 49ers have no 6th-round pick. If you're looking at how the list stands today, they move up to spot 160 in the 5th round, now have 2 5th-round picks, and they send that 6th-rounder to Minnesota. Still 11 picks, but 27 spots better from that 6th-round draft pick that they originally had.
And all eyes are always on the 1st round, and the 49ers are slated to pick at number 11 in the draft order. And there's been a lot of speculation going about at what the Niners might do with this 1st-round pick this year. And what I've seen across the league and in the latest set of 49ers pick projections, experts keep their focus on the offense and defensive line in the 1st round. Some reoccurring names to keep your eyes on is Armand Membao. He is a tackle out of Missouri. He's really interesting because he was excellent in pass protection at Missouri, and he earned a 90.6 overall PFF grade. He stands at 6'4", 332 pounds, and he's been a name that I see pop up across different experts across the league, from PFF to CBS Sports to the NFL themselves with Daniel Jeremiah. So really, really excited to see maybe where he falls in the draft in the 1st round this year. Another name also on the offensive line is Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Some notes I've noticed from him is that he has great quickness. He was a 3-year starter at Ohio State and runs in a run scheme offense, which is exactly what the Niners run. So he'd be a great fit for the Niners. And now looking at the defensive line, another name that pops up is Walter Nolan. He's a defensive lineman out of Ole Miss. One note I brought up from him was from Bleacher Report. They note that he is a very physical lineman at the point of attack, which is something that sparked my mind when I think of Chris Kasarik yelling at our players during practice. And he truly emphasizes that physicality up at the defensive line and that quickness as soon as the ball snaps. He started in all games for Ole Miss during the 2024 season. And finally, another player to keep your eye on is Jalen Walker. He's a linebacker and edge rusher out of Georgia. And he's really interesting to the 49ers because he is versatile. He has experience on both the edge and as an off-ball linebacker, and the 49ers have needs at both of those positions, and they like those versatile players. So perhaps he's a good name to fill in there, perhaps, different areas of the defense, and he brings a lot of experience to both sides there. So really interesting stuff, and I'm excited to see what the Niners do in the 1st round. Lindsay, do you have any idea on what the draft could look like? Maybe not at the 1st round, but what are some needs that are needing to be addressed throughout from 1st to 7th round?
Yeah, I think when we're looking at what has been addressed in free agency and then also, again, the immense draft capital that the 49ers have, I think what I believe really mimics what our draft experts have been talking about. The defensive line certainly has suffered some losses in free agency, as well as the offensive line. You saw the backup left tackle in Jalen Moore signed with the Chiefs. You also saw our starting left guard, Aaron Banks, head to the Packers. So those are some obvious needs on the offensive line. In terms of defensive line, Malik Collins, who was a starting defensive tackle, Javon Hargrave as well, both exited in free agency. Also Leonard Floyd, who is an edge rusher, definitely needs of perhaps just some new talent on the defensive line as well. I see those being the biggest needs right now. Obviously, the 49ers have added a lot of special teamers in free agency, but also a lot of those special teamers are also members of the secondary, could provide depth there. So I think those needs have been addressed, at least in part. Definitely at linebacker as well, could use some fresh talent there as well.
Yes, so with the free agency moves starting to settle down, who knows what could happen in the next few weeks. The draft is looking super exciting for the fan base and for the 49ers, so we will have any other updates for you on some upcoming episodes of First and 10. Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube. Turn on those post notifications for any breaking news, Move the Chains updates, and we'll see you next time.